My home county, Fluvanna County, and two gentlemen sitting across from me, rock stars in that county.
Wow.
I'm going to start with age first.
I thought it was just no. Okay.
So the rule of everybody having fun and busting chops are allowed here. So this is a busting chop free zone.
I'm just listening to where you're going with it.
I know Chris, and he can dish it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be really hard for me because the two gentlemen across, one of them I've known for 3 decades close. And how long have we known each other, Tony? 15, 20 years at least?
No, I don't know if it's that long. I think maybe 10.
10 years?
I don't. Yeah. But
So-
your dad's my next door neighbor. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I've got Tony O'Brien, who's the current sitting supervisor for the Ravenna district, and across to his left is Christopher. Is it Chris or Christopher you want to be called today?
Chris.
Chris Fairchild, who is a candidate for my district, which is the Cunningham district. So I'm really excited about having this conversation. And for those, we're powered by Shenandoah Joe. So thanks for Shenandoah Joe and Dave Ferrara. These
Amen.
are great. I rolled in this morning to pick up my cups and my coffee, and there was a line out the door.
Yeah, we're fans of the Joe. Dave's a good guy.
Dave's a great guy. So so what we're going to do for the next, between today to the 29th of October, every Friday I'm bringing in 2 candidates from all the different jurisdictions. And, as we said off air, it's 4 guys or 4 people and a cup of coffee, maybe a little bit of something in the cup of coffee, just shooting the shit. There you go. I said the S word.
Yeah.
I said the S
Can
word.
in fact cuss on there.
You can. There's no rules here.
I don't, but he does.
That's
I
fine.
do?
And gentlemen, you guys are about to be on
Did you just say you never cuss?
Gentlemen, we got quiet on the set. 3, 2, 1. Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness. We're live on the I Love CVille Network across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. We're presented by Yes Realty Partners, and today, Coffee with the Candidates, brought to you by Dave Ferrara and Shenandoah Joe's. This show, impactful. Keith Smith, you've put together a hell of a roundtable today. My friend, introduce gentlemen of extraordinary proportions right here.
Did you really just put all those words
Oh, I
together?
did.
He pointed at me and said extraordinary.
I was looking at both of you guys.
I
Both of you
awkwardly
guys.
gotta, yeah.
I got lost at gentlemen, but anyway, that's a whole different story. So as you can tell, guys, this is going to be a lot of fun. I think the world of these 2 gentlemen that's across the table from me. We're doing this coffee with the candidates through today, through the last Friday of October, and what we're doing is we're bringing in 2 candidates from each jurisdiction, and we're just having a coffee talk. The old
Talk amongst
Saturday night
yourselves.
talk amongst yourselves. The old Saturday Night Live skit, and I couldn't think of a better place to start than my home county, right?
Amen.
Fluvanna County, right? We're going to start with Fluvanna County. We're going to end maybe not so much, but we're going to start with Fluvanna County.
Start with the best first, right?
Pardon?
Start with the best first.
Work your way down.
Exactly.
Sure. Okay. As you can tell, they're politicians.
We'll welcome Chris Dowell, who's watching in Lake Monticello. In fact, much of the Lake Monticello neighborhood on the feed, literally as we speak.
Amen.
Why don't we start with Mr. Tony O'Brien?
There you
Give a brief introduction of yourself to everybody that's watching.
Oh, sure. Great. Thank you. Yep, I'm Tony O'Brien. I've been your representative in the Ravenna district for the last 8 years. I'm up for re-election. Good news for me is I don't have an opponent. Bad news for you is that you don't have a choice. You could write in a candidate, I suppose. And I'm not trying to be arrogant here. I really do like the democratic process and love to see competition out there. All I can say is that I look to represent all of Fluvanna, not just any particular party. I run as an independent. I've always considered that the issues in Fluvanna are Fluvanna issues. They're not Republican or Democratic issues. I try to do what I think is the best that I can do for Fluvanna, and that's the way I look at the issues as they come up. Sometimes you may agree with me, sometimes you may disagree with me, but always know that I'm out there to hear what you have to say.
What's that?
So the two gentlemen across are also business owners. So talk about your business that you own a little
Sure.
bit.
Yeah, I'm very proud to be the partner at Helix Computer Systems. It's a company that I helped found in 1998. So we're going on to our 23rd year. We are very.
You know what?
fortunate.
I'm going to give you props on that. Okay?
Well, thank
Give you
you.
props on that. That's legit. 13 years for this business. That is impressive. 20
Yeah.
plus.
Amen.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Wait till wait till
And
Mr.
we've-
Fairchild.
I'm going to give you props too.
That's right, yeah. And we've been very fortunate to work with a lot of great businesses in Central Virginia primarily. We work with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of small businesses in general, and we really try to make sure that their IT services are up to snuff. I'm happy to say that Mr. Fairchild is also one of my clients as well, too.
I spread that word.
Spread that word, and we are here to serve businesses in Charlottesville, Fluvanna County, and the surrounding areas to get on the cloud, to stay safe, and to make sure that their networks are running so their clients are productive.
So COVID's probably
Their employees are productive.
so COVID's kind of helped you a little bit, right? You think?
COVID has helped us in a sense. There's been a lot more demand for the services. Obviously, people trying to work from home, doing those things, the challenges associated with it. It's hurt us in the sense that we love
Being
to
by
see our
people.
clients.
Yeah.
We love to see our clients. We love to be at their offices. We love to hear their problems in person.
So Chris, I should say. I apologize.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Your mom calls you Christopher,
well,
right?
and the Smith family.
Okay.
And the Smith family. Well, we've got a long history of
Yeah.
Smith families. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Chris Fairchild, I've been on the Board of Supervisors before in 2011. I'm probably the only person in Fluvanna history that was appointed, and then we redistricted, and I didn't have a seat to rerun. So I was a one-year
that wasn't
guy no matter
personal.
what happened.
That wasn't personal.
But you're safe this time, right? Because you're going to make it past the redistricting.
Yes, right. We still don't know what will happen once you all redistrict.
Well, hold on.
Right,
Hold on.
a week
That's a
after.
topic that I got to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Finish introducing yourself, Chris.
Yeah, and from Fluvanna, grew up there and raised my children there, and blessed that on the 26th of this month, my second granddaughter, Scotty, will be born, and with my son Hunter and daughter-in-law Robin, be raised in the house that Hunter and Kayla grew up in at Lake Monticello.
Good for
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah,
for you,
It's
man.
beautiful.
and
So
so
you're going to join Yonna and I's team. We're at 2 grandkids.
I'm at that'll make 5 grandkids,
Oh.
2 granddaughters.
I should have known that.
Can I ask how old you are?
Yes.
You're aging well.
Yep, I'm younger than him.
And younger than me.
I'm 53.
You're aging well.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Oh, don't do that.
between Botox and running. So,
It's just a Rogaine.
yeah, that's not it.
Well, you know what doesn't grow on a busy street, right? Grass.
But just Don Weaver, after 32 years of serving on our Board of Supervisors in the Cunningham District, has retired and endorsed me to run, and just blessed to do so.
And I just want to say that, I've had the privilege of working with Don Weaver for the last 8 years. We don't always see eye to eye on many issues, but I truly respect the man, and anybody who served the board for that long deserves really the respect of everybody in Fluvanna County. So
Amen.
Kudos to Don Weaver. It was a tough decision, I know, for him to leave, but he loves Fluvanna, and he's really done his best to serve it for the last 28 years,
So-
I think.
32 years,
32
on the
years,
Board of
32 years.
Supervisors. Before that, 8 years on the school board.
Yeah. Really
So
amazing.
for nearly the full 32, I've been kind of doing this world of politics since 1987, and we may not have landed on the same side of an issue with Mr. Weaver and I, but one thing he always was consistent, and always fair. So we wish him all the best of luck.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Love him to death.
So I made a note real quick. This is interesting. So we're going to have 2 business owners. How many? Do we have any other business owners on the current Board of Supervisors for Fluvanna County?
Moselle Booker is a retired teacher and principal.
Mike Sheridan's
Mike
a
Sheridan's
teacher.
Teacher.
coach. He does own a business. He
Yeah.
has his own driving school, so yeah, he's a business owner.
Coach
So-
Sheridan, we love you, Coach.
And own National Filter Service. Out in,
So I wanted to talk about
Patricia
that.
Eager's also technically a business person as well too. She has a development business
That's
with
true.
her husband. So technically, yeah, we're blessed to have 4 business owners at a minimum to the board.
So that's interesting because that may be, in my opinion, helpful for moving the county forward from where we might be right now. But talk about National Filter Service, because that's a great story. And most folks don't know much about it because it's a national company. Talk about, I mean, you started that pretty much right out of high school, right?
Yeah, I was 21.
Took you that long to get out of high school?
Yeah. Good call. No, I quit before
I couldn't miss that opportunity.
I just quit before I got to that point. Married with 2 little kids and worked for R.E. Boggs Heating and Air in town, and they just sent me out on a slow day in the duct workshop to hand tools. And in July, and unit was frozen up where the filters hadn't been changed. And after a couple hours of thawing it out, I just happened to say to the shop owner, "Hey, if you..."
To Steve?
No, to a shop owner. I was working for Steve's dad.
Okay, got it.
And just said, "Hey, if you would have changed your filters, maybe you wouldn't have had this cost and aggravation." And he said, "I have 8 stores. When can you start?" And I said, "Can't start a business off of that." And he said, "My brother has 29 stores. When can you start?" And
There you go.
we decided we couldn't get poorer than we already were, so it couldn't hurt but so much. And about 20,000 locations later, and this is our 30th year. Good Lord's blessed us to. Thank you. There we go.
So it's important. It's important to talk about that. There is a national company in Fluvanna County.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple now.
But I mean, we have a gentleman who's running for
Absolutely.
the seat. Who? I'm sorry, I used the word gentleman. I apologize, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm from Fluvanna.
Sorry about that. But we have a candidate who owns a business in Fluvanna County that, is a national firm. I want to talk a little bit about the Genesis, because you and I are kind of similar, right? We got out of high school. I went in the Marine Corps. You went into the workforce.
I went into marriage, then the workforce. Yeah.
Well, isn't that the same thing?
One's a little harder.
Which one? Sorry, Mrs. Miller. Sorry, I see you watching, sweetheart.
Remember, I tend to get
I
myself.
think all our significant others are watching right now.
And I tend to get myself into trouble a little bit, which is not surprising to you two gentlemen.
And I like to help you with that.
I
sometimes.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. But what I would like to try to get back to is you both have this experience in running a business, right? When you're seated, because pretty much that's what's going to happen here. Are you going to bring any of that knowledge to the county and help move the county forward? What does that look like to you two gentlemen? And I'll start with Tony first.
I think, many times my fellow board members sort of defer to me in terms of the business experience, not because they're not business owners or haven't been business owners, but I think just because, of my level of experience, how many years I've been doing it. I've been essentially an entrepreneur now since 1992, about 8 years after I graduated from college. And so, I haven't worn a watch in the same period of time and haven't earned a paycheck that wasn't earned by me since that period of time as well, too. So, that gives you a lot of insight and input into the challenges that your local fellow business people face, into the goals and the objectives that they want to have, into the need that they have for growth and opportunity. And I think that's really important when you look at the health of a county. I often say that Fluvanna County is a business in itself. It competes with the surrounding counties.
Sure.
And to the degree that we don't meet the needs of our constituents with strong core services, strong educational system, with a healthy budget, we're failing. We have to compete with the local businesses and counties in the area.
I also always say it's like a public company.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people who have a board of directors, and your purpose is to control the direction of, and in some ways, whether profit is quality of life or literal income, make good investments.
Absolutely.
And that was the track I was trying to go on here, that without a doubt, a local jurisdiction, regardless of what it is an entity unto itself. It is a business. And not and we don't want to kind of, the services that a local government, is all not necessarily dollar or widgets, right? But it provides services, and sometimes it needs to be treated like a business. And this is kind of how I wanted to kick the conversation off a little bit. You guys also are used to managing employees, right? You know, I know Christopher worked pretty much his whole adult life for himself. I know Tony has done that. I got out of the Marine Corps and worked for nobody but myself since 1987. Okay, I take that back. I've worked for Mrs. Smith since 1987. I apologize. I will correct myself. Otherwise, I will hear that
CEO
later.
of the company, right?
Which Mrs. Smith?
Oh, that is true. He and I spend way too much
Your
time
mama's
together.
El Presidente.
No, at one point in time, I was the president of the entities.
Uh-huh.
My mother was my executive assistant.
There you go.
Who meant she was the boss.
Oh, there you go.
And all that
Absolutely. You're
stuff.
Charles'
But I think it's important for those who are watching this to learn a little bit about your thinking about what you're going to bring to the table, right? So, Christopher, you've managed a lot of businesses before. You have a lot of experience in the volunteer world. So, you get seated tomorrow. How do you see your first day going? Does that make sense?
If I cannot speak to the first day, but just more to my mentality
Sure.
of where business comes in. One, I'm a 2 + 2 always equals 4 person. If it's looking like 3 or somebody's telling me it's 5, then we're going to have a long conversation until we get to why it's got to be 4. And it's just my personality. And so in government, I feel like a lot of times we can talk about the warm and cozy and say, if we just do it like this, and it will look like that. And to me, prove it. One of the best things that happened to me when I was on the Board of Supervisors before, talking about first day, is that I wasn't getting from our county administrator the leadership that I needed, being an air filter service guy, to understand the details of the budget when it came time to set the budget. And when I wasn't getting that, it made me dig down, and that is my personality, find it myself then. And through that, I learned far more about our budget than I would have ever known had I had an administrator that would have led me. So, yeah, I think that's what I bring to the table, and that's probably why I'm successful at business too. I just follow it.
You're practical, common sense, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
We were talking about this I think it was on our Tuesday show, and I want to personally thank you, Chris, in front of everybody, because Chris stood by my side, and so did Tony, when we had the great, the time of great unpleasantness, let's call it, on that end of it. And, he was with me all the time, and was kind enough to appoint me to the Planning District Commission, which I am now I think I'm the longest serving member.
Are you still on?
I'm still on.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Maybe when you get elected, maybe I won't be anymore.
Yeah.
But
well, let's talk about that.
we'll talk about that. Little negotiations on the side on that. But I've been on it for 10 years.
I was on it. I was on it too.
job.
When I got on the board, I think when I got on the board, maybe I couldn't or something. And that's I think when I appointed you.
I think whatever I can't.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Keith. I can't remember what I did 10 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
10 years ago
I'm with you, brother.
is a whole different story. But what I wanted to go back to that is just for the heck of it, because I'm not a normal person. I actually printed out this budget, and the county's budget for 2022, and I want to echo what you said. It is hard to explain it. It is hard. I mean, we're going to stay away from it today because it's impossible to explain over a talk show. But a lot of people don't quite understand how much money comes in and out, and residential tax base and the money.
Well, that question's coming in the feed, so we should acknowledge some of the viewers. One of the questions is, what is the total budget for the Fluvanna County jurisdiction? So maybe one of you guys could answer that for us. This from Nicholas Erpy, CMO, Emergent Financial Services. Good to see business owners in office so they can understand how businesses think. Too many politicians see businesses as blank checks to fund their vanity projects. We need more business owners in elected positions. So, question about the budget in totality. We'll recognize NBC 29 and CBS 19, both watching the show as we speak.
Great.
Awesome. Well, Keith, you got the number right in front of you. It's around 88, 89 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Close enough. Yeah.
Actually, we just finished the budget season just a few months ago. One of the things that's maybe changed since when Chris was in office is the transparency with the budget itself. We were very lucky to have and currently have a very good county administrator. He worked under Steve Nichols, which also did a lot to kind of modernize the budget process.
I agree with all
There's
that.
a lot of detail that happens now, a lot of planning that happens beforehand. I know that the county administrator and the finance department work hand in hand with all the other departments to make sure that the budget's as tight as possible.
Yeah.
80% of our budget basically boils down to personnel. Fluvanna County's personnel has been, compared to other counties, not as well staffed, if you want to look at it that way, but they've done an excellent job. The overall budget, the majority, of course, is used for the schools. Fluvanna County has about 93% of its funding comes from real estate taxes, which is a little bit off, compared to
but it's
surrounding
better.
counties.
It was 97 a few years ago.
Not 97, but it's better. It's getting better. And
a few years ago it was 97, so it's getting a little bit better. So good job, guys.
Well, we're definitely moving in the right direction. We are finally going to have the benefit of having water in the Zion's Crossroads area that Fluvanna can access. We weren't able to have that before, but I'm happy to say that the first water system is coming online this year. Hopefully before November 2nd. Not that matters from the election standpoint, but it would be a nice kudo to finish off and saying, hey, we've got water here. 8 years after, that was one of the primary things that I was focusing on, was bringing water to the county so that economic development could happen and so that we could reduce that tax burden on the homeowners.
So one of the things that most folks who may be listening or watching don't quite understand about the budget, it's actually called the budget season, right? And folks think that this just happens, and it actually starts in around the fall of the year. So those who don't know, the fiscal year goes not January 1 to January 1, it goes from July 1 or June 30th to July 1, but it's a mid-year, it's a fiscal year. And this whole budget process starts pretty much around November. Matter of fact, it's kind of starting now. As you two gentlemen know, I'm pretty active in the affordable housing space and a bunch of nonprofits and regional housing partnerships, and we're already getting the inkling, hey, if you need money for next year, now's the time to start asking for it. So this process has really started now, and it is a pretty lengthy, detailed process, which is good, which is great news on that. But most folks don't know that. Most folks think that it just kind of happens, and it is a ton of work that goes into it.
And one of the challenges, of course, is when you have somebody who's brand new onto the board, they haven't actually been through the budget process. Chris has, which is a benefit, and since he's running unopposed too, I'm assuming, God willing, he will be sitting next to us during the next budget season. The main point is that he's had that experience to go through it to say, okay, I understand the numbers, I understand the process, I understand the challenges, and so now I'm going to work with my fellow supervisors to determine what we can do as a county to set a tax rate that will keep the county healthy from that standpoint, but also help to meet its future needs.
I've proposed our budget, and by the way, seconded, I think for the first time that Don Weaver ever seconded a budget, and that was because I spent a lot of time with him and every board member one-on-one saying, here's what I believe it should be, and not emotionally, but because the numbers seem to come out like this. And I talked to the school board or school administrators, and they say that they could deal with not having this if they could have that. And in the end, when we advertised our rate, I came out in the middle of what everybody wanted, not because of the feel, but because the math brought me there, which led us to, I think at somewhere around midnight, the night we advertised the budget, me having hate on both sides, and we're going to get rid of this sucker. I'm just kidding, but finally, after 3 or 4 intermissions, I don't know how we found the middle road and advertised a budget, but it's a very deep, detailed thing that you got to spend a lot of time hovering over.
Yeah. And one of the things we've been lucky in the last, again, 8 years is we've had 3, I think, 5-0 votes on the budget. And I think that speaks volume when all of the supervisors can agree on the budget that they think is right for the county. So that's pretty remarkable.
And when I was on the board, we had just come through pretty much the whole high school debate over whether we were going to build that high school. And there had been a lot of split, not only in the board, but in the county.
Sure.
And it was important to get people on the same bus and show some cohesion.
So I'm going to ask a really simple question, and then I think Jerry's probably got a bunch of stuff on the feed.
There is, yeah.
feed to ask. I'm going to start with you, Chris, because I know the answer to this, but I think it's important for folks to hear the answer to this. Why are you running? Very simple question. Why are you doing this?
I love Fluvanna. I mean, I've been there. I want grandchildren to experience the same quality of life I have, it's a gem. There's a reason people are moving here to get away from other places, and not only do I love it and want to serve, but I also want to protect it and be sure again that it's there for others in the future. This is honest and naive. I've been involved in enough sports and committees and so on throughout the county. Just we're blessed to have people ask me, and I participated, where when I got on the board of supervisors, very honestly, I didn't know I was going to get paid. I didn't know you got money for that. And I kind of went, well, why do they get money for that? Nobody else does, for coaching or whatever. And so a lot of people do it just to serve and be involved and help their neighbors. And I mean, that sounds kind of gushy, but that's why I'm there.
I tell you, I've been doing this for almost 3.5 decades. Anybody who sits in that seat, and I know you two gentlemen well enough to know that this is what you do. In order to really do your job right, this is a full-time job. This is a 30, 40-hour-a-week job. Just to between, and a lot of folks don't know that. Once you get seated, I mean, Tony and I sit on the Planning District Commission together. I can't tell you how, I mean, there's multiple committees and commissions I know Tony sits on, and you will sit on once you get. A lot of folks don't know that. This is a tremendous time commitment from an individual that sits there. I think the money's a token kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like $6,000 when I was on there. I don't know what it is today.
Board of Supervisors in Albemarle County is just over $16K. City of Charlottesville Council $18K. Mayor $20. Folks that are doing public service, they ain't doing it for the money, folks.
Yeah.
They're not doing it for the money.
What is it in
Fluvanna's
Fluvanna?
10K.
10 is
It's
what I thought.
10K?
Yeah.
16 and change in Albemarle.
Yeah. And you know, that might just pay for the gas time going
Yeah.
back
That's
and
what I'm
forth
saying.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. You know, I've always been of the opinion, and you know, I think that, and you guys don't have this, like you guys should have dedicated staff. You know, you have the county administrator, right? But because the reason dedicated staff is important from my perspective is it helps the institutional memory, right? Typically, the dedicated staff stays through that, and I just have some personal experience for that. And Chris knows this. When my father-in-law passed away in 2009, I called Marvin Moss, who called Tom Perriello, who's secretary.
Get your passport.
Yeah, my passport expired.
Expediting your passport, right?
Expedited it, and I went to the airport, and my passport was there.
Yeah.
So that to me, that's what government's supposed to do when you're up against the wall. But it would never have happened if this particular individual wasn't in there for decades.
Yeah.
Right, through multiple different stripes, right? Democrat, Republican, whatever
Esther.
it was. Excuse me.
Esther, right?
Esther, that's exactly
Esther.
right.
That's right.
Esther's a piece of
She
work.
worked under L.F. Payne.
Yep.
And then under Good as well too, and then Tom Perriello.
A phone call
Ringleman
went
and so on.
from Marvin to Mr. Perriello. Perriello handed the phone to Esther, and Esther fixed it. So look, but in order to do that, you have to be like a Richmond or something that
Sure.
large, because the fiscal, there's no room in the budget
Right.
to make that happen. Which is even more important that you guys, you know, the people and folks need to know that, right? Even if you don't agree with the decision, understand the amount of time and effort that these folks put in.
You know, in all seriousness, and I'd have to check in, even if I guess the laws wouldn't keep you from doing this. Maybe it's worth spending that $10,000 on paying a part-time person to help be sure stuff's taken care of and getting a part-time, admin.
It sounds like a proposal. So
That does not exist in Fluvanna.
He's already trying.
I'm
to
saying take my
love the budget.
$10,000 and
Oh.
pay for an admin.
So there's no admin on the board helping the board?
No, an administrative assistant to me to help me
Oh,
get
got
stuff
it.
done.
Understood.
So there's a county administrator,
Uh-huh.
right? So the county administrator is the CEO of the county, right? But he also helps his board, right?
Well, I mean, is there like a clerk of City of Charlottesville has a clerk of council that is taking what is discussed in council?
You have the same thing there, but
Okay.
that's a ministerial, right? Minutes, stuff like that, and it's a great position, well needed, and she does a wonderful job. Kelly, right? It's
Yeah,
Kelly. What's Kelly's last name?
Harris.
Does a great job. Pick up the phone, get that. But I'm talking about somebody. If Chris has a question, please explain this budget to me.
Yeah.
Right? How does this process work? Instead of interrupting the CEO who's trying to manage the entity itself, that if you would have somebody to help through that. I've always believed that would make sense, and maybe, Chris, you're on to something where if everybody kicks in their dollar amount into something, who knows?
Well, to your point, I think in Fairfax County, the Board of Supervisors.
People are seeing you on air right now.
Board of Supervisors there, I think they typically have a staff of like 5 or 6 people.
So,
but that's a very different level of service.
but that's the reason I prefaced it with we're not Richmond. Both of us know our dear friend Bill Hughes. Bill Hughes came from a fellow Marine, God rest his soul. A dear friend of all of us here at this table. He came from, oh God, I can't remember what township.
Long Island, though.
It was Long Island, but
Yeah.
trying to remember the specific town. Freeport. He came from Freeport, and he had 2 assistants because Freeport had, million some odd people, and they had the budget to go ahead and do that. And this whole idea, and it's kind of an honor of him that he was saying, I don't understand why we don't do this. And then I looked at the budget. I said, that's why, Bill.
Yeah, I don't know. I never felt that I needed that, as long as I didn't go too much to staff. I tried to be clear that they have their stuff in the day, and they're going to answer my call because I'm on the Board of Supervisors.
Of course.
And through that, I could be disrupting what they're doing. And so, as long as I was mindful of that, I never really felt like I needed. Have you ever felt like there needed to be some sort of middle?
Not right now, but again, if I was at a Board of Supervisors in Fairfax and I had to have meetings with,
a bit different.
with a lot of constituents every day, that would really change my schedule.
So we're going to move on from my genius idea.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Let's acknowledge some folks watching. Brittany Gray, liking and sharing the post. Brittany, thank you for engaging with the show. This question's coming from, and you know what? Someone's doing a hell of a job for your campaign, because this show just got shared for Fairchild for Supervisors page.
Amen.
Someone did that.
That might be Brittany.
I think that's probably Brittany. Brittany, you do a good job right there. So this is from.
So how does that work, Christopher? Chris, how does that work?
What's that?
How does that work?
I have no idea.
Don't answer that question.
Yeah.
We're getting them on the app and not
Yeah.
the browser on
There you
Facebook.
go.
Right?
Yeah.
So let me throw this to both you guys. This is from Jonathan. How do we get more of the Fluvanna County budget not associated with the real estate taxes?
Ooh, great question.
Well, if I can,
Sure.
he'll have a better answer because he's fresher to it. But one of the things I had to struggle with is, and this is when we had to start paying for the high school, was you're going to raise taxes. There's no way not to, at least then. And part of my motion was we put it over onto other taxes, personal property and so on. And there's an argument of, well, why are you doing that? You're still raising taxes. And I was trying to relieve a little bit of it from being on the real estate side. And but I mean, if you spread it, if you created a meals tax, this is my belief. If you created a meals tax, for the most part, you're still taxing the same people, because we don't have a huge amount of tourism through Fluvanna County. So they might feel like they're not getting it at home, but when they go to eat, they're going to get it there. So I'm really not. You got to spread it.
So to play off of that,
He alludes to this, that his real estate taxes are increasing and increasing and increasing.
well,
Yeah.
And he's on a set budget.
and
Yeah.
and I totally get that. But to allude to that, I have several clients that I helped move restaurants. One of them is a dear friend of the show.
Watching now.
Into Louisa County in lieu of Fluvanna.
I think we should probably give him some props.
We will give him some props. So it's El Mariachi. It's Steve and Johnny Ornalis. Ornalis, thank you. Us Smiths have a hard time with Ornalis. And I won't.
But why did you do that? Why did you help move him to Louisa?
Well, we wanted to do Fluvanna first. We couldn't find a space.
Well, and also doesn't hurt that there's 15,000 cars that go by there every single
Yeah,
day.
So,
All the
yeah.
Ritos
There,
things.
there
Yeah,
was
yeah.
not
And-
a space available
Right.
in Fluvanna County, in Zion's Crossroads, to do that. There's just not space available to do that. So when we looked at the whole footprint, I still have clients looking at the full
You
footprint.
still wanted. You're talking about Zion's Crossroads.
Zion's Crossroads.
Not Lake Monticello.
No, Zion's
That was-
Crossroads.
I
So
got
this
you. I got
is
you.
this was a
Yeah,
Zion's Crossroads. Look, let's face it. There's a reason why VDOT built the Divergent Diamond Interchange. That is. We've been talking about this on the show for 2.5 years, right? That is the next growth area for our region, flat out. That's where it's going to be. But there was not a space to go to. And matter of fact, there's ultimate other clients that did it. But to go back to your meals tax, and I will not use the number, but the daily income and the monthly income that restaurant produces is substantial. that should have been come to us because there's a meal tax in Louisa County.
And I think, what a lot of folks don't understand when they look at the Zions Crossroads area, Fluvanna County is right on the border there with
Sure.
it, right next to 250, is that Louisa County made an investment
Sure.
a few decades ago. They put in a water system. In order to have a building of over 10,000 square feet, you need to have water suppression, which means that you need pressure, which means that you need a water tower, which also means that you need the wells to serve it. And so Louisa County made that investment. It's taken Fluvanna decades to come to that same point. We are right around the corner, as I explained earlier. That opportunity allows us to be able to host a mariachi or other restaurants, which in turn allows for the drive-by taxes that you hope to get. Louisa County is certainly benefiting. I think they generate almost $7 million in taxes. Much of that is going to be in the Zions Crossroads area. Specific to the Zions Crossroads area. And a fair amount of that is going to be drive-through taxes. What I mean by drive-through taxes is that you have residents that don't necessarily live in your county that are paying part of your taxes in the form of meals taxes, sales taxes, et cetera. So to answer the question,
that's the point I was trying to make, Tony.
Right, and to answer,
we go there for dinner,
right?
And so our tax dollars are going to Louisa, not to Fluvanna County.
So is this
That
where we
was the
give
point.
Fitzgerald Barnes a little props?
We can give Fitz a little
Yeah.
bit of charge.
Yeah, Fitzgerald Barnes.
I know Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Hey.
So,
But I want to elaborate on that.
Go ahead, sure.
I've heard that I used to be chair of the Fluvanna Economic Development Commission, and I'd get calls randomly at the office saying, hey, since they have Walmart over there, how come we don't have Target on our side of 64? And I'd say, well, first of all, Target will let you know when you're ready.
Yep.
You don't call them.
That's exactly right.
Second of all, we don't have a side of 64. So the property on both sides, on all four corners, is Louisa. Fluvanna does not begin until 9/10 of a mile off the interstate on the Palmyra side of 250. So there is no, it's not just because they built a water line. It's because they own the dirt.
So,
and Walmart and Lowe's and so on was not going to go on the other side of 250 when they could be seen from the interstate.
because the geometry didn't work. The geometry didn't work. There was
Are you talking geography?
no geometry. The geometry of parcels,
Okay.
right? Because you just explained it. The intersection was mostly Louisa County. So if you take a
It's
look,
all Louisa County.
correct. But a portion of it is a little bit over at the Glass property. It's kind of touched up a little bit within a few hundred feet. But the physical entrance intersection. So the reason I said geometry on that is because when you start taking a look at parcels and how to put them together, that's what a developer does. I start looking at assemblage. The geometry doesn't quite work as well as it does over there.
But at the intersection of 15 and 250,
It is Louisa County.
all four corners of the intersection
That's exactly
of 15 and 250, Fluvanna, all four corners of
That's
250
exactly right.
is Louisa, much less 64.
That's exactly
So
right.
it's a hard thing to say we should have had that. What I say is, now we've got water there. They naturally were a generation ahead of us because of where they sit. And with their growth, it will move it over to us, and
Absolutely.
we're more
So
prepared
Tony
for it.
is about ready to see something because it was in the Planning Commission meeting the other night. Ms. Shackelford made a presentation because you appointed me. A couple of years ago, I made a motion at the commission to create a joint plan, look at a joint plan where Louisa and Fluvanna County works on an economic development growth area because we're kind of at the hip there, right? We got to work together as a team to develop that, so it's the benefit of everybody. And I believe I didn't get a chance to see it, didn't watch the whole presentation the other day, but it's going to come to your board soon. So how do you two gentlemen feel about a partnership, for lack of a better term, from the economic, not the water side, because we already got that, but from the economic side of it, because you're 100% right. I don't think we can do this on our own without partnering with Louisa. But I'm a regional guy anyway, so I'll always promote that. Any thoughts, guys?
Well, yeah, we are in partnership with Louisa County,
Yeah.
and we're very fortunate to have a county that is, been, as Chris said, been ahead of the game as far as that goes, making those investments. They are partnering with us in the James River Water Authority, which is a huge investment on the part of Louisa County. And that is ultimately going to bring about 2 million gallons up and down 64, but that's certainly going to touch Zion's Crossroads. and Fluvanna County will benefit from that water there. So, I mean, without Louisa County, we probably still wouldn't have water in Zion's Crossroads, to be honest. The system that's being put in place right now only has a capacity of about 125,000 gallons. It had to dovetail with the water that we're bringing from the
Tony, I
James
agree
River.
1,000% with you.
Yeah.
Water's a done deal. It's just a matter of time at this point.
Yeah.
We all at this table, the Fluvanna side of the table, have spent decades, trying to get that through that. What I'm talking about is an economic development partnership on that, and that's what's being worked on now, right? So we did the partnership for the infrastructure. Okay, now to use your sports metaphor, what's next, coach? Right? And we have to work together, so it's not an us, to me, it's just not an us and them thing.
We should acknowledge some of the folks watching.
No, I'm sorry.
You got the Fluvanna Review watching, you guys here on the show. Questions coming in for you. Questions on denser housing in the county. We'll get to that in a matter of moments. Two really good questions from Xavier Yerpe, who's the chief investment officer of his firm. And he says, how does Fluvanna help the small business community thrive, which will in turn help drive tax revenue? And then the second question, can counties share revenues amongst themselves?
Well, they can, because the city and Albemarle County do that. There's a revenue sharing agreement.
This is an allusion with this is in reference to Fluvanna and Louisa.
Correct. There could be. I mean, this would be a decision that the board would have to make. But go ahead,
An
Tony.
example is, that let's stretch it out right now as Louisa County is investing in their Ferncliff Park. One of the options that they put out there was that the surrounding counties and part of the Go Virginia Partnership and TJPDC, that they work together and make an investment into that business park, allowing you to generate revenue outside of an area that might not be your own revenue. So essentially, you partner in helping to build a park somewhere else, and you benefit together. Go Virginia in itself is really pushing that concept, and Go Virginia is a program from the governor's office and Richmond that basically is saying, we don't want to just give money to one particular county. We want to give money to regional areas to develop.
It's a box you have to check.
It's a box you have to check. How are you guys working together? And I think that, that over the years, I'm happy to say that I think Louisa and Fluvanna have developed a much closer relationship than they used to have together.
Oh, I remember.
And that relationship is starting to pay off. And so, yes, we're going to work together. We're going to look to find ways to generate revenue together. We are a very business-friendly community at present. We don't have a B-poll tax, business license tax. That is a savings. If I have my business here in Albemarle County, and I pay thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah.
The worst part of it is we pay up front on collections.
That's right.
I mean, that is brutal.
Yeah.
We can't underestimate how hard that is for small business owners.
You got to project.
We're projecting in early Q1 for the whole year.
Yeah.
So we are very friendly, and our economic development team is, maturing and growing and reaching out and creating more partnerships. So absolutely, we welcome every opportunity to bring business to Fluvanna. But we've been very lucky to have two governor announcements for businesses that have come to Fluvanna.
That's right. You might want to talk about what they are for folks who don't know.
Yeah, so we have a T-shirt company that came in. They're actually in Fork Union, right next to you, pretty much.
Across the street,
That's right. And they are already up to almost 100 employees.
And a great thing about them is they came in and filled a large building that was pre-existing, that we already had a commercial building that they didn't build another.
That was a furniture company, right?
It was, yeah. It used to be Armstrong. And that's important to me because I want to continue to see fields and trees. And just like National Filter Service across the street, I preferred to remodel an old 15,000 square foot building that was 50 years old than build another one somewhere when we already had that in place.
So one of the things I love about this show is we have a conversation and these folks are just kind of reading our chemistry. So one of the things I printed out to talk a little bit about today is tax, percentage tax, and shout out to Neil Williamson.
He's watching. Neil Williamson, Free Enterprise Forum. Hello, my friend.
Does a great job.
So he did an analysis, first quarter of 2021 versus first quarter of 2020. The Greene County had almost a 24.5% increase year over year in tax dollars. Fluvanna was only 9%. Louisa County was 19%. So Louisa's kind of got it going. So we're kind of Albemarle, believe it or not, Albemarle, Charlottesville, and Fluvanna all around 9% increase year over year. The Rockstar was Green, which was substantial. The second Rockstar was Waynesboro, which is on the other side of the mountain. But in our footprint, the real second Rockstar was Louisa, which Zions Crossroads is a big.
I'm not sure you're a rock star when you raise taxes that
No.
much. I mean-
No. This is tax revenue from sales.
Oh, okay.
This is tax revenue for sales. This is not raising property
saying
tax.
percentage of
These are
yeah,
sales.
gotcha.
So I probably didn't express myself clearly. So these are sales tax revenue, first quarter 2021 versus first quarter 2020. Greene County was beat it 2020 by 24.5%. We had an uptick of roughly 9%.
One important point about that sales tax revenue is that we are now benefiting from the fact that people that are shopping on Amazon now pay a local sales tax, right? Which we did not have before.
That's
so
correct.
There are a lot of people that live in our county and they shop on Amazon or they shop online. Those taxes weren't being collected before. So density is going to matter as well in terms of overall growth, for sure.
So one of the
But in a county like Fluvanna, it's still a tax almost on everybody in Fluvanna. So it just was an increase of taxes on Flucos, right?
Oh, no, but previously that tax revenue might have gone to...
I'm not saying the Amazon part.
Right.
I'm talking about...
Well, I mean, we'd have to get Neil in here to take a dive in.
Neil's watching. So
dive
if you have
into it.
If you want to relay, he just shared the link that you are talking about on the feed and hashtagged it Content Slinger. We love the Free Enterprise Forums
And what matters?
Elections
matter.
Elections matter.
I would not disagree with the 9% for Fluvanna County, right? We have a certain amount of folks that come in. Both of us know Food Lion well. Food Lion does pull folks from Buckingham, does pull folks from...
A little bit, but
not
there's a reason you go into Food Line and you know everybody and you can't hardly get out sometimes.
Oh, good Lord.
There's a reason you go into Blue 53 and you know everybody Thursday or Saturday. It mostly feeds the locals, and so higher taxes of any sort in Fluvanna,
Interesting.
for the most part, raises taxes on Flucos.
Interesting stat. I was talking to the general manager of Food Lion the other day. The average purchase is like 7 items. It's not a lot,
Yeah.
right? But the 24...
Why is that?
Because it's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 1987, moved to Lake Monticello. We would go to E.W. Thomas and shop for the week, or we'd go into Charlottesville, shop for the week. I ran out of milk for my coffee yesterday morning at 7 o'clock. I ran up and picked up a quart, and I ran back home.
For me, it's 7 items because if I don't rush in and out, I'll be there forever.
Without a doubt. But Christopher, that's the charm of it also.
I love it.
That's absolute charm of it.
It's good to be from somewhere.
Oh, well said.
It's exactly right. It's the charm.
Beautiful.
It's the charm of it. You meet somebody you haven't met in a while.
Yeah.
I go food shopping usually at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's my little thing on Sunday. I go do that, and our Commonwealth's attorney is there every Sunday morning. We have a conversation.
To be clear, it's me that I'm combating by getting in and out because I will stop and talk forever.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to know that point. You can't allow
We have that in
I'm
common.
sure
Yes,
the
we do.
Commonwealth's attorney enjoys chatting with you every Sunday morning at the
No, he
grocery store.
usually
Yeah.
tries to avoid. He usually tries to avoid.
Oh, I bet he does.
I see him head down.
Can't imagine Jeff.
What's your
shopping.
point?
Chris.
Now, and real quickly, just a shout out to E.W. Thomas, has been serving
Sure.
the community for a long time.
Amen.
Just
Decades.
a few miles down the
Decades.
road from the food line there, and they serve our community so well. And so
And
I try to share
they fill the lot.
my shopping between the two locations.
The argument I'm trying to make about the 24.5% increase for Green or the 19% for Louisa, these I think are people coming from transient folks that are coming in and out, particularly on Green, right? As folks are going down 29, they're stopping. I mean, Green's going to get a Starbucks,
Yep.
right, on that. But go to your point, Chris. I reached out to Chick-fil-A for Zions Crossroads, and it was amazing to me that Zions Crossroads didn't meet their criteria. Did not, like you said earlier, Target's going to reach out to you and say, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I figured Chick-fil-A would be sitting out there right on 64, but the numbers aren't there.
My business is pretty involved in the retail world, and so not only facilities managers, but once you know him, you know a lot of the others. And I'm very aware that companies that size don't by happenstance or don't by invitation, for the most part, land anywhere.
The numbers got to make sense.
Very
Yeah.
targeted, yep. And they're looking also for the fact that the counties have already made investment in making sure that their parcels are already, essentially at stage 4, stage 5 for development purposes.
So, Tony,
If I can just say, we want a plan, of course. That's the job of the government. But to some extent, and it's just the facts, to some extent we are going to react to what happens in Louisa, in Zion's Crossroads, because what fills towards Fluvanna on that side of 64 is going to allow us opportunity. So it's not that we haven't been doing the right things in the most part. It's not that we haven't been trying to compete. It's that our time is coming.
What's your time frame prediction on that, though?
To be honest, I don't know. I'd just throw a number out.
you're in the facilities world. If a CVS is on one corner, what's going to happen on the opposite corner?
Walgreens.
There you go.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because those are the best corners.
There you go.
Yeah.
Neil Williamson, COVID work from home has increased sales in outlying localities. Workers are paying for groceries closer to home due to work from home. Not a tax increase, but a reassignment of revenue from Albemarle to Fluvanna County.
Great point.
Yeah.
Neil Williamson, Free Enterprise Forum. Dense housing is a topic.
If I can just say that real quick.
Please.
I just heard within the week somebody said they were talking to the manager at Food Line and said either it was one of the best or the best year they had was last year because people were home to
They
his
may
point.
only buy 7 items there, but they're a very busy food line.
Yeah.
And for the size of the jurisdiction and the size of the square foot, they consistently hit top 1, 2, 3 of the state of Virginia.
And they now have sushi.
They've had sushi for a while.
Yeah,
They had sushi for a while.
I wasn't in there a lot during COVID, and I came in and there's a sushi chef. And
Yeah, it's actually really good. Have you tried it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really
but
good.
That's a good segue. I mean, just talking about Food Line, I was speaking to a group the other day, and we were talking about density because there's some concerns. With the economy getting better right now, we're seeing existing subdevelopments starting to fill out. A lot of those subdevelopments didn't have the enthusiasm because the housing market wasn't
Sure.
there. And we're seeing new proposals for housing development as well, too. What I tried to explain to folks is that, the county, all counties go through the process of setting together a comprehensive plan in which they target their CPA areas where they're going to have growth, that you want to have targeted growth in particular areas because that's less of a drain on the resources of the county itself, and that also that concentration, if you would, helps to bring other things. So I put out the question to the group and I said, how did the lake, where 45% of the population lives, change Fluvanna County, and how did Fluvanna County change the lake? How did Food Line change the lake when it came? How do the stores and the shops and the business owners that are serving the Lake Monticello area change our community? So change isn't always a bad thing. What is important, and that I think Fluvanna is very aware of, is in fact to try to preserve its rural preservation areas, its areas that are so beautiful, and you want to do that by making sure that you have that concentrated growth in particular areas, and that you don't necessarily force just by right subdivisions to spread outward necessarily. So if you don't put in some energy into making sure that you have adequate housing stock and adequate places for folks to live, that ultimately will happen through by right subdivisions and cluster subdivisions, and that ultimately spreads out and destroys more and more of the actual rural character of the county. So I think it's a challenge for folks to see that happening because they look at it and they say, why is my community changing? They see that concentrated growth right there, but drive a mile down the road, go to Kent's store, go out to Bremo Bluff. You're going to see an awful lot of the rural character of Fluvanna County.
You got thoughts on that, Chris?
I do. Lake Monticello and all the subdivisions around it have created a very tight mass of a lot of people. And those people travel. And 729 and 53 are already horrific in the mornings and the evenings. Right across from Nahor Village where Village Gardens is proposed beside it, I went to do my run the other day, parked there, and stood on the side of the road at Nahor for probably 5 minutes at 5:15 in the evening, could not just get across 53 to start my run. And it's to the point where the VDOT can't do but so much to enhance the road. 616 is another example. They're not going to widen them. And to continue adding more traffic to that area does not build quality of life for the people that are already here. And public safety, I think, is the only thing above quality of life that the government has a responsibility to, and that is becoming more and more dangerous to travel those roads.
Fair
Thank
point.
you.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the challenges is that we have to look at what do the roadways look like.
But
What's the
Zion's
traffic
is a
level?
natural environment
Right.
because people can get on 250 or 64
Yeah.
and commute. Or if that's where we're talking about having our business growth, then we should have them there so they're not traveling across the countryside to get there.
No, and Chris raises a good point. You know, part of that, though, is that part of the planning process, you know this, Keith, is that you have VDOT involved,
Sure.
right? You have engineers involved
Sure.
that look at the water systems, that they decide whether or not the water can be provided. And they ultimately are the folks that, you know, have the responsibility in terms of saying, is this doable? The board always has the right to say, it's doable, but we still don't want to do it. That's always within their purview. But if there isn't water, you can't develop in high density. And if the roads aren't going to be safe, then you can't do that. One of the things that I learned when I started on the Board of Supervisors is, to Chris's point, how important safety really is. I'm excited that, you know, we now have roundabouts in the area that have reduced the deaths in the intersections that we had before, that have helped calm traffic. There isn't a quarterly meeting with VDOT that I don't talk about the dangerous spots in the county and encourage VDOT to do that. They'll come out, they'll do the traffic studies, they'll say, here's where it is. You know, there are hours of the day when, to Chris's point, it's very busy on that part of the road, and there are hours of the day when there's very little traffic on there.
So
And
one of
that's
the
true everywhere.
So one of the few things that I'm most proud of is that roundabout. You know,
The one you got the ticket on.
the one I got.
Got a ticket in a roundabout?
He was happy.
Chris does not know that story.
Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah. So we're going to punt on that story. Let's put it this way: the guy who was pushing the hardest for it drove through that roundabout too fast and got a ticket.
Yeah. Well, Keith deserves a lot of credit for that roundabout. He worked with the developers. They proffered the land. It would not have been possible to build that roundabout
And it was
than doing that.
It was the first smart scale project in the state of Virginia. When it went from the old, 6-year plan thing that VDOT did to this new smart scale system, we had to really check some boxes, which I think is a huge improvement over the way VDOT does its work. But hey, I'm gonna
I just needed to elaborate a little bit on this. I'm sorry.
speeding ticket.
This is and of course VDOT does huge amounts of planning, but I'm going to talk in regards to when we build these developments and so on, and what happens to 53. VDOT reacts. Whatever we put in there, VDOT will say, okay, here's what we need. VDOT is not saying in doing that it's okay, this is the type of stuff you should be doing. It's us, the county, to decide quality of life. VDOT's not going to do that.
So one of the interesting things about that is, you know who really pulls the trigger to have that conversation?
And by the way, not us to decide quality of life, but for our constituents' help.
So you're spot on, Chris. VDOT itself, it does random studies and so forth and so on, but it really doesn't look at a problem until somebody says, this is a problem. And 9 times out of 10, it's a developer that's trying to get something approved and
Right.
starts going through that, and then the wheels start turning. That's literally how that project happened. I just personally lost a few friends in that intersection and took it on to myself to try to get that intersection to a roundabout for a safer thing. It just happened to be tied to
My
it.
next door neighbor was killed right there.
Yeah. It was a deadly intersection. So, look, few rules, right? We don't point fingers at people, right? We try to have a lot of fun on this. But it's also a real estate show, right?
Yeah.
So the reality of it is people are moving from the center out. We're driving to e-qualifying. We coined the term now, you fly into e-qualifying. People from Harrisonburg and from all this, driving into Charlottesville to work. The market's going there, right? We're all free market folks here at this table. The market is going there. And it's interesting. I ran some numbers this morning, and you two gentlemen probably know this. Lake Monticello, the median sales price year to date is $265,000. Do you know what it is in the county?
385.
318.
I mean, you just put a home on the market at the lake with a 4 in front of it.
Yeah. Well, it's
Oh,
It's got
there's-
an acre of land.
it's
got some land. To
sure,
it.
sure.
But still.
Yeah.
There are homes with 8s in front of them,
Well,
9s.
I mean, this one's in a little different
But-
spot
but-
than on a lake.
Right.
But affordable housing is near and dear to my heart. I talk about it all the time. I do obscene amount of hours volunteering on this stuff. Lake Monticello, I don't consider 264 affordable, right? I don't consider that an affordable housing unit. I know this number for sure because of the land trust. In order to a family of 4 that hits 80% of the area median income, that sales price needs to be about 215, 220 in order to hit that. And oh, by the way, the 80% area median income is our teachers, our cops, our firemen. I more call this workforce housing than I do affordable. I kind of don't. I think that term at the 60 to 80% area median income, because most people don't know this. Fluvanna County is actually the same as Charlottesville, the same as Albemarle County. It's around $92,000 is the area HUD's definition of the area median income, and most folks don't know why. And the reason it is, a huge percentage of Lake Monticello goes into Charlottesville to work, so they bring their salaries back with them.
Let's acknowledge some questions for you guys.
Yeah.
Gwendolyn Cassidy.
Oh, hey, Gwen. Had a great cup of, I think we had water yesterday with Gwen. That coffee shop was closed by that time.
She says it is similar to the chicken and an egg scenario. How do you build dense housing without services and proper infrastructure, but still maintain the authenticity of the area? Then she asked this question of both you guys. Do any of our government agencies, specifically in Fluvanna, build what are considered healthy buildings?
The high school was, I think, awarded one of the Green Awards.
LEED. It was platinum, if I remember
Platinum,
correctly,
yeah.
which was
So there was
that's a big
lot-
thing.
There was a lot of planning around that to make it green. We just went through a process of, quote, reducing the energy costs. We hired a firm. This is done nationally in a lot of places, so can't take a lot of credit for that, but basically they come in, they upgrade your HVAC systems, they look at your lighting, they change all of those things, and there's a front-end cost to it, but in the long run, the cost is reduced, and so when you finance that out, basically it's a net savings to the county. So all of our county buildings went through that process over the last 2.5 years. I think that one of the things that we've always got to look at, and we were just having this conversation about solar energy. How do we bring more solar energy into the county? How do we have those projects? Maybe that doesn't seem to be a direct benefit when you're talking about the homes, but of course when you're talking about the grid itself, it is important. So we wanted to allocate that, solar panels are in areas where there's not necessarily growth being targeted.
Yeah.
And I think that we're headed in the right direction as far as that goes. We still have Vanderlyn Recycling right there. They do a good job. So are we 100% where we need to be? No, but are we doing the right things?
I think Gwen was more speaking to the residential side
That's
than,
yeah.
than the commercial side. And look, Village Oaks, across from the main gate, year to date, the median sales price for that was $309,000.
Got some good news for you.
Yeah.
524 Jester Lane is under contract.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that.
Just found out.
Excuse us, we're doing a little business.
Yeah.
That's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,600 square feet, 0 days on market, so it just was flying off on that
Is it
stuff.
in Fluvanna?
Excuse me?
Is it in Fluvanna?
Yeah.
So
So this is
Village
Village Oak, right across from the. Right.
524
Oh, no.
I thought that would make you happy.
Yeah. Squirrel. What's going on? Squirrel.
Ball.
Attention. He knows. You know this. Attention deficit. So maybe a little bit of that over there on that end of it. So
And she is referring to residential, Keith.
Yeah, got it. So I can speak to specifically to this because as the land trust, we built units on Nassau Street in Charlottesville that were true net zeros. So those who don't know what net zero is, the individual who lives in those homes do not pay electric bill because we put solars on there. But look, that was...
Give Pearl a props here.
Yeah, Pearl Certification did it. Christopher Bronte for Bronte Homes did it. What I was about to get to, in order for that to happen, it took a relationship of multiple people, multiple entities. It took what I call the 4 pillars of a healthy housing system to work. The private sector all chipped in. The public sector said, hey, here's the money to buy the lot. The nonprofits, we had ours, we had PH, we had multiple nonprofits through it. And then the last pillar is the people who we serve, right? The people who help we get in there. And 99.99% of those folks, literally the first conversation they have is, I gave up. They gave up on the American dream. They gave up on home ownership. They gave up on what generational wealth can be created out of home ownership. But to answer the question more directly, it was a ton of subsidies. Those houses would have cost about $450 on the market to hit that number. So at 308, you just can't produce a net zero. So this green stuff is great to talk about, but then you got the business portion of it. How do you get this math to work on that?
My understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, without subsidies from the Fed, there is no return on investment.
On what?
On solar and
It's a longer return on investment.
Yeah, so
very long.
I
From what I
think.
understand.
I think we were actually having this conversation, this debate, at our last Board of Supervisors meeting, because when we talk about subsidies, a lot of folks say, well, why am I subsidizing someone else for this, right? But there are subsidies that happen, of course, to energy companies. There are R&D development costs. There are hidden costs that aren't being allocated. So let's take a look at if climate change ends up flooding much of the development that's happening on the coastlines, where does that subsidy happen? Where is that cost being attributed to? Because we'll all pay that cost in the form of higher federal income taxes, as an example.
So to answer your question,
there are a lot of hidden costs in that. And this is not the place to debate all this, but I just want to point out that costs aren't always exactly what you see.
Sure, of course, yeah. I mean, the 2 and 2 does equal 4, but sometimes there's a lot of math in between to get to the 4 on that end of it. So Yonna and I are working on solar on our house, right? And what'll happen is the tax credit really isn't that impactful, frankly. It sounds like it is, but it really isn't that impactful of the way they have it structured. But I will have a $200 utility bill for 20 years.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, because I'm trying to buy the new Hummer, the electric Hummer.
No.
I was thinking of you about that.
It's not a real Hummer.
I know that, but I can plug it in.
It doesn't sound. It doesn't have a roar.
Okay, well, let's move on.
It's a completely different version of the Hummer, right?
Get a noisemaker.
Hey, it's got crawl. The wheels go this way.
it's true.
This is the new Hummer.
But she also had a first question that we didn't speak to.
Sure, what's that?
No, you read 2 questions from her.
Gwendolyn?
Yeah.
Let me get to her.
And I hate to go back because I felt it was important.
Sure. And while I find that question, we're live on 15 Facebook pages here. So let me
And
find.
so he's managing 15.
Well, I tell you what. Instead of going back, let me say this, because I think that in some part of that grabbed me on this. I heard in the gentleman that we had a question earlier with the organization that studies county policies and so on.
Neil.
Yeah.
I was listening to the show with him on here recently, and he talked to the fact that Louisa had a 15.2%, I think, increase in population, whereas Fluvanna had a 6 point something, Louisa being the highest. And you all said, well, why is that, do you think? And everybody agreed it's Zion's Crossroads. And so when it comes to protecting our environment where we're at and so on, and what it all means to taxes and more housing and growth and all the rooftops that are in Zion's Crossroads, you always hear, and I'm not saying good or bad, you always hear, look at all the business that's there. But you also had the largest residential growth in the region. So you went to 15%, twice what Fluvanna had.
Yeah, so, percentage, what is this? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So that was 99% of that was in Spring Creek. Spring Creek sat dormant through the great unpleasantness. That came back up. I call it depression. We decided to call it great unpleasantness.
Neil branded it that.
Neil
we have a lot of questions we got to get to here from
Go ahead,
voters.
I'll shut up.
A lot of questions for voters. So Charlottesville's Finest is driving by here. Salute to Charlottesville's Finest. That's what you're hearing in the background.
That would be Bravest, Finest of the police, Bravest is the fire department.
So Neil, for both you two, okay? Chris and Tony, which is better for quality of life? Dense rezone development or sprawling by right development?
I'm going to say that, again, from the standpoint of services, it is more effective, more cost effective, and less intrusive into the environment to have dense development than it is to have by right development. I think you need a good mix. I heard a very good opinion piece that was actually in the Cavalier Daily of all places. I believe it was an economic professor at UVA. And he was talking about how by right development was, and lack of cluster development not cluster development, but concentrated development, and I know this is hard to believe, in the Albemarle area, was in fact inflating prices out, which then goes back to the points that you were bringing up about affordable housing. So I'm going to argue that, they're both, and again, property owners have a right. They do have a right. You bought that piece of land. If you don't want that neighbor to develop that piece of land, buy his land, right? If you know those are his intentions. They do have rights. And that, we want to make sure that we're bringing in a good balance between the two.
Well, the proof of that is if you pull out all of Lake Monticello sales year to date, Fluvanna County, the more rural properties are more expensive than the ones at median, taking out your high and your low into that. Go ahead.
Chris, your answer, Chris, and perhaps your answers are going to show up here in a free enterprise forum. So just...
Yeah, I agree with most of what Tony said. And, loving the countryside, I certainly do believe in property rights. My property is mine and so on. But if you decide to sell your property and that is going to create all of this additional traffic on a road like 53, it's going to make me pay more for schools and so on. My taxes are going to go up. I am your partner. And if it's going to the water line that we built to Zion's Crossroads, and I'm the investor that you've now tapped onto what I built, I am a partner in being sure that what you put there brings a return on my investment, and it can't be a 10,000 all 10,000 square foot buildings with one bathroom.
Sure. Will
never pay for the water.
Absolutely.
So
the best way to pay for water is residential, by the way. They always get the highest connection rate.
But see, that's what happens. Let's build a water line. To get it there, to get businesses, to relieve pressure on the people. But then the best way to make use of the water investment is to get more people.
There's a few exceptions to that.
Shaky.
There's a few exceptions to that. Most industries are not water intensive, right? But that's a VDH formula, right? So it's roughly 300. It's not roughly. It is. They use 300 gallons per residential unit. Yeah. Right.
You're gonna get.
Yeah,
you're going to need a bunch more residential
to pay $20 million
to substantiate putting that water line there, so you get more rooftops and more fire trucks and so on. And I'm not arguing what's good or bad. I'm just saying that's the truth. And yes, we need to plan for that density. That is better, but we need to plan where we put it.
Well, and that's what the comprehensive plan's all about, right? That's what the growth areas are all about, right? Your body makes this through the input from the citizens and all this stuff. And this is the reason why the state requires you to do it every 5 years, right? And look at it, because 5 years from today is going to be very different from today. 5 years back was very different than it is today, and that's the game plan of that. And it's a non-obligatory document. I'm talking too much. You want to ask?
Well, I mean, I'd like to acknowledge some of the potential voters here and the folks watching the show. This is from the president of the Charlottesville Albemarle Association of Realtors, Quentin Beckham, watching the program. Our friend, we love you, QB.
We love him.
He says, we can't confuse housing affordability with affordable housing. But each stop towards housing affordability helps lower the bar for affordable housing. And Xavier and Quentin are going back and forth. Xavier says, but housing affordability also comes from making good wages. How do we keep constituents making better wages in Fluvanna and around Central Virginia? And then the response to that is, that's a complicated answer. I think location, transportation, and such play such a role. But I think we have the best method to affect wages and allow for upward mobility is education. Anything you want to talk on these topics here?
If I could just say that, of course, part of that, some of these are obvious, some of the answers, and some of it's economic development. But I now think about sensible economic development. If we're going to promote it to come here, then we need to vet it and be sure that it actually does relieve taxes, that it actually does bring good jobs, and just not try to invite every type of business in, because some businesses aren't going to fit Fluvanna's rural environment, and they're just not going to fit what our goals are. I used to say that we had a board member that if you wanted to build a third river in Fluvanna and said that's a great economic development, that it'll bring people and tourism and so on, that person would say, yeah, let's build that third river, because you called it economic development. And we just need to be sure it's truly what we need. Because otherwise we'll become what everybody's moving here to
Right.
get away from.
No, and I think that's fair. I mean, I think at the end of the day that, the debate that we have with our citizens, the debate that we have amongst ourselves, the debate that happens at the planning commission levels, the debate that happens when you're going over the comprehensive plan, all of those items help everybody to understand where we're trying to go and how we should go about it. Nobody here is for, and I think any politician would say this, looking to do insensible development or insensible economic plans. Does that happen from time to time? Sure, it can happen. But I think the better the debate, the more input from citizens, the less likely that is to happen.
And you know this, Chris, because you were on the Economic Development Commission. Thank you. I know this from being in the street. So most of my commercial I do is retail, but I do have some conversations with larger industrial folks looking for area to come in. The typical water, sewer, infrastructure. There's always a fourth or fifth question about where's my workforce coming from and where they're going to live, right? And are this workforce traveling from Buckingham County to Zions Crossroads? And, when you're looking at a $267,000, I can tell you $243,000 house, because we just sold the land trust homes over there on Spring Hill, is roughly about $1,500 a month. That's taxes, insurance at a 3% interest rate, HOA fees, yada, 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 yada. If you work the math backwards, what does that equal to an hourly rate? So you've got to. They're going to want to know where my workforce is coming from. Otherwise, they might overlook us. Any thoughts on that, or am I off base?
Yes, and
yes, I'm off base, or
yes, typically. So I recently read a term I had first seen from our county planner in the paper about us increasing our R4 density. And it had the term, the need for more housing is workforce housing.
Sure.
And having been on the EDC, our charge was to get more businesses to add relief to the rooftops, to the houses. Sure. But then when I hear, now we need workforce housing, we need to promote more housing to bring in workforce to get the bigger businesses, I go, wait a minute, we were trying to relieve the burden because in Fluvanna, a house increases our taxes. Now we need more rooftops to bring the business in, all that's going to go up, the taxes, so we can then get the business. And it's just,
chicken
to me,
and
that
egg.
feels, it's just bigger and bigger and bigger. And to me, we need to have more vision than to allow that to happen. We need to be smarter about it, and I don't have all the answers, but
I don't think
It
none of
is a
us at
chicken
this.
and egg thing.
Yeah.
None of us at this table have the answers. Otherwise,
everything I do is vetted by the impact on Fluvanna's rural environment.
This is from two moms in Lake Monticello that are watching together. Gentlemen, you've gone most of the show without talking about schools in Fluvanna County. Where are you guys on the need for more educational infrastructure and potentially more schools?
great question.
Boy, that's a great question. And
How often do you hear that?
well, all the time, honestly. In fact, I just met a new resident that moved to the area, and she was talking about how, and she's in the teaching profession, as is her husband. She's not teaching at Fluvanna schools right now, but her husband's a coach there. And they talked about how the compensation was relatively low. Now, Fluvanna has done a lot to step up the compensation for the teachers to help bridge the gap between the two pay scales. But, part of the reason why I first came on the board was because of education. My daughter was getting ready to go to the high school, and there was actually a conversation about not opening up the high school that had just been built, which I found to be absolutely absurd.
Right.
We made a massive tax
Commitment.
We made a massive tax commitment, and we had a debate about it, and so the tax rate wasn't matched to meet that commitment, and in turn, we cut the budget for the schools very substantially. We're just back to more or less the funding levels that we were in 2012 for the schools. I think that's a shame. I think that's a bloody shame, to say the least. Chris is a product of the Fluvanna High School system. My daughter's a product of the Fluvanna High School system.
Both my daughters are.
Both of your daughters are. I'm very proud to say that we have a great educational system there, and that we, are often, doing the most that we can with the money that we have, but that we are also, working, to make sure that we're trying to balance both the increase on the homeowners in terms of taxes, while maintaining those quality services. We passed in our CIP budget this year a $25 million bond so that we can get more school buses, so that we can get air conditioning to the schools. One of the school systems has an air conditioner that's very old. That's almost $3 million for that air conditioning system. Those are the types of investments that help to catch up where we haven't been able to do that. And we did that increase, we did that loan on really a tax-neutral basis because we're balancing it out against the loans that are coming off the books. And when you actually look at the cost of the money, given that we're going to get those loans at 2.5% versus inflation, it's pretty much a zero investment at that point in time.
So, Chris, I'm going to.
You should answer this.
You should if you can tackle this. We just so that you know we're substantially over our time. We have about 5 minutes left here, guys.
Sure.
So, if you can tackle it, and then we'll kind of wrap up a little bit.
I'm going to speak in a more broad sense about all that. When that high school was built, it was a terrible, volatile environment for Fluvanna County.
I remember the power station, very similar.
Yeah, but that high school was it was a political split, and
a lot of friends split up because of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it wasn't handled correctly. We need to do that better next time because those wounds are still a bit open. And if anybody feels like they own the day, we always say in baseball, if you're behind, you're going to flip your cap and wear your rally hats, and good chance you're going to come back. And if we get all we want in everything we do, my neighbor doesn't get the respect who disagreed, then my neighbor's going to get people together and they're going to take away. So that the school got passed, it was overbuilt. The architect who did it told me months after, I built 88 schools. I got this one wrong. I built it too big. I overspent. So when that happens, then you have people who get elected as a reaction, who then take part of the school's budget away.
So talk about economic development.
And that's terrible. I hate to see that.
Talk about economic development. I never understood this. We've got a high-tech auditorium, sits 900 and some odd people because we couldn't go to 1,000.
It's underutilized.
It's never used. Why aren't we having concerts there? Why aren't we not? I mean, to me, I just look for incremental income because of the business brains start looking at that. Well, we'll do that. I will kind of wrap up on this. We get asked all the time about the school system. So as
Did you say axed?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should hear him say realtor.
You notice I didn't say that.
I know, you didn't say that. You're doing a hell of a job.
Thank you, sir. As a real estate professional, how you like? I'm not allowed to say realtor because I swallow the R. I get the whole Yankee thing, and you've heard it before. So, but I can't speak to the school systems because I'm not allowed to. From an ethics perspective, I can't say this is better than the other. I can say we put both our daughters through that, the whole school system, from kindergarten to high school, and I did not have one bad experience through that. It was a great education system. They were loved on. They are both successful young ladies, mainly because of my wife. Successful young ladies of doing well in life. So, I love the Fluvanna County school system. Always did.
And to that point, I got off track a little bit talking about that new teacher, that new resident that I met. She was saying how great it was that the teachers were calling her to tell her how well her kids were doing, and how excited they were in school. She said we never had that type of interaction before.
So I just want to say to those two mothers, great question, because another school build is a conversation that's newly on the table. So I would suggest that's a lot of the conversation.
School board will bring that forward, but
Fluvanna.
So what I heard was we got to do a better job of PR. Which this is gentlemen's and marketing and advertisement to get out and bring people along. And I'm going to wrap up on this.
Not kicking the can down the road.
Right.
I can wrap on this. I can say this from a personal say. You two gentlemen on the board, I can guarantee you that won't happen. This will be inclusive. This will bring people in. We may not have people agreeing with each other, but it'll be inclusive. It'll be respectful.
Jennifer follows up, one of the moms. She says, our kids are riding the bus for too long. The routes have been consolidated. It's time that we get the kids off the bus and either at home or in the classroom.
Well, a lot of that reason is they don't have bus drivers.
Well, that's actually a statewide problem right now, getting the bus driver. So if you're at home and you have time and you can put some time and energy, please reach out to the school system. We need bus drivers. All counties need bus drivers.
I got a phone call. Apparently, Yonna put my application in. So it's about time it's about time you got a job.
Yeah, this is fun, but yeah, make me some money. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, would you make some money? Please?
No, it is a real need out there. So
Yeah,
please.
but a lot of that is because of lack of. They got the buses, they don't have the drivers.
That's correct.
And I want to quickly respond to that. We'll do that together. What Keith was saying. Tony and I don't always agree on everything, but we work well together and have a lot of conversations where there's just a lot of respect and mutually trying to find the right path.
And I'm
So-
going to find an alley real soon.
So we're way past time, but you just echoed the Sorensen mentality, Sorensen
Yeah,
Institute
absolutely.
mentality of bipartisanship. And you may politically be on different sides of it, but at the end of the
We're
day,
both for Fluvanna.
we're both for Fluvanna. At the end of the day, you might have a cocktail or two, and you'll still be the best of friends. And that's why I'm excited about my home county and the future of it. So, guys,
And I learned much of that in Sorensen. Some of that was already there, but Sorensen did a phenomenal job.
you should Google.
instilling
You're not
that in me.
familiar with the Google, the guys.
Sorensen Institute for
So-
Political Leadership.
Couldn't think of two better folks to start off to get this rolling, this coffee with the candidates rolling. You did-
Presented
by Shenandoah Joe. and
Cheers.
turn it around.
Dave Fafaro, we appreciate you,
Thank
sir.
you, Dave.
Gwendolyn, another fantastic show. Thank you for this. Jennifer said this show was fantastic and informative. Xavier Erpe is saying the same thing. I mean, you got a ton of Fluvanna watching you guys on this program.
Anybody say anything hateful?
I mean, if they were, I wouldn't relay it on air. Yeah, I wouldn't relay it on air, but no one has, Chris.
Great.
No one
Okay.
has.
We have I mean, it just blows my mind, the folks that watch this and how they get it and they want to get
I mean,
engaged.
you got local media watching the program.
So, guys, thank you, and
Glad
thank you
to be here.
again.
Thank you for
Thank you.
hosting us. Really
And
appreciate
I wish you
opportunity.
guys the best of luck and go Fluvanna.
Same to you. Thank you.
Fluvanna, thank
Guys, Coffee with the Candidates presented by Shenandoah Joe's, Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners, trust the name of the game, Yes Realty Partners. All we're trying to do is put information that is approachable and relevant on social media and something that is in everybody's hands, smartphones.
For the good.
To make Central Virginia a better place and more informed place for everybody. The whole concept of the network. Thank you for joining
And thank
us.
you for doing that, by the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you. Former Charlottesville Mayor Dave Norris at 12:30 on the I Love CVille show. You guys will see you in approximately 48 minutes. Take care.
Thanks.
Hold on 1 second before you say anything. Let me turn the mics off.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Normally I have somebody sitting here doing this for me, but he's on vacation.
Yep.